Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Taking the Lead, where I have the joy of interviewing leaders, mostly from PR marketing communications. But we don't talk that much about PR marketing and communications. You know this. It's all about leadership. Now, sometimes I get to interview people I've met for the first time. Sometimes I interview acquaintances. But from time to time, it's that rare joy of getting to interview someone who I worked with many years ago, who I so admire, who I have so much fun with. Who let me tell you about today's guests. It's Trenesa Stanford-Danuser. She's the CCO of Hudson's Bay Company, and she's the global head of branding, communications, community outreach for Streetworks development. She leads strategies for this multi-billion-dollar portfolio of North American companies, some iconic retail brands, of course, you've heard of, like Saks Fifth Avenue and Saks off Fifth Avenue. She has been instrumental in advancing the company's social responsibilities and commitments and addressing what she's very upfront about, the company's upfront about, some historic injustices. If you don't know, Hudson's Bay Company is the oldest continuously operated company in North America. Previously, she had multiple senior global domestic communications roles with Estee Lauder companies and Origins. And on that personal basis, Tree and I worked together at Marina Mar Communications. Oh my Lord. Let's just say late 90s, early 2000s, AKA a lifetime ago. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else too, Trenesa Stanford-Danuser, welcome to Taking the Lead.
Hi, Ken. I'm going to get you for putting age and timelines. You know better. You know better, man.
I didn't say you were one of my oldest friends. I just, but maybe that was the implication.
People
Okay.
can do math. Thanks for nothing.
Okay. We were children. I was a high school student and Trenesa was in kindergarten at the time.
That's
Okay.
better.
Let's get serious. Why is effective leadership so critical for PR and communications for this industry in 2024?
Honestly, we're so enveloped by what's happening outside of the walls of where we work. If you're not in tune to that as a leader and coming into the workplace, understanding that the breaking news that has nothing to do with your clients, nothing to do with your portfolio, but the world we live in may in fact be affecting the people that you're leading, then you're doing something wrong. I think that our colleagues and associates in our companies expect us to show up knowing what's happening outside of the world of work. And when we can say, let's move forward with the work that has to be done with the understanding and the sensitivity and the emotional intelligence about what's happening when people leave for lunch and leave to go home, I think you're going to get an effective team because there's the human to human. That's all we're doing. We're just people trying to earn a living. And sometimes we're coming into the work environment highly impacted by what's happening outside of the workplace.
Absolutely. So, speaking of the workplace, we're living in the era of employee disengagement. Many of you know there was a Gallup study, a workplace study. I'm going to read because it's such an important quote. Employees in the US continue to feel more detached from their employers, with lower levels of satisfaction with their organizations, less connection to its mission or purpose than they did 4 years ago. And they're also less likely to feel that someone at work cares about them. Holy moly, what's a leader to do?
I think that it's an interesting question because if a leader doesn't know what to do, then there's a problem. I think that the simple act of reaching out and seeing the people that are a part of your team is really a number one leadership responsibility. When you take the time to read a CV or a resume, when you take the time to interview a person, you ask them questions about themselves beyond the work that they've done in the past. And so there's already this relationship that you've begun to establish. So what is it that we do, especially when we're in these hybrid work environments? How do you maintain sort of as much interest as you showed that employee when they join your team? How do you continue that by a simple, how's your weekend? Isn't that funny? It doesn't take a lot. And sometimes people just need to know that they're being seen. Now, there are some associates that are happy to sort of be under the radar, and that's a different conversation. But there are people that just simply need to know that their bosses, their leaders, their managers acknowledge the fact that they're there. And this pick up the phone, schedule a Zoom, take a walk outside of the office. It doesn't take a lot to spark that re-engagement. Now, you might find out why that person is unengaged during those interactions, and that's for you to sort of use that intel and move forward. But the act of just seeing them and asking them to pick up the phone, have a private Zoom, take a walk, have a coffee, those are really some basic steps that we as leaders can take to engage with our colleagues.
Yeah, it's so funny. What you just said made me think about the fact that while we're pursuing an employee, while we're courting them, right? But like they're the greatest person in the world and we need them to come here. We want them to come here. Like that's the engagement. Then we get married and like it all goes away. And it really should be the opposite, shouldn't it? It should be, yes, we want you to join us, et cetera, et cetera. Now we both agreed, okay, now we're really going to court you. We're going to really make you feel special, wanted, heard, and listened to. Okay, here's a question we ask many of our guests. I know you're going to give us an honest answer, but what has been your most significant leadership challenge?
I think it really does spark back to your earlier question about engagement. As there are changes that are happening in companies, the way we do business is changing, the size of the teams that we have to do the work is changing. And so having that candid conversation with your team about the changes that are happening is it can be challenging as a leader because it's also telling. Those difficult conversations that we have to have with people that work on our teams, and then that other tapping them on the shoulder to get them energized. And it's challenging as a leader, especially when you have teams that are virtual, that some are international. I mean, we're able to do business anytime, anywhere, but we're not often always in the room. So as a leader, that can also be a challenge. It's a modern challenge, but it is something that I remember the days when we would working together at Marina Mar, we had those big conference rooms and we would huddle and have some baked good. And there was something about ideation, building something together in real life that we often don't have as leaders with our teams now. Someone may be in the room and someone may be on a Zoom, and there's that challenge in making sure that everyone is feeling heard, having a way to contribute to the bigger ideas, and feeling a part of the team. That's a real challenge these days.
I think that's so true. And I think we all need to accept very few, if any, companies are going back to everybody in the office 5 days a week. It's just, my goodness. And so we're going to be, I think, some kind of hybrid, some kind of in out, some kind of something, maybe forever. Because a lot of companies, yet, well, I want to acknowledge there are certain things that are tougher to do outside the office, like the ideation sessions and what have you. But I think so many employees have now built a lifestyle around not doing what you and I did 5 days a week. We just didn't think about it. So I think that's just going to be an ongoing challenge for this generation of leaders and managers. We
Mhm.
must figure out how to create that engagement in a very different world, in a very
Yep.
different world. Okay, now many organizations understand that DE&I is a strategic business imperative. It's not just a nice to do. Yet we're seeing many states, many universities closing down their DEI initiatives, or even worse, they're not allowing mentions of it. They're banning the word. What's your take on that as a woman of color in PR? And a leader in PR? What's your take on all that?
Well, it's disappointing. I think it's a sad step backwards. And I think that there are companies that are savvy enough and have sort of been early adopters of making sure that they understood that their businesses are better, their work product is better, their environment for working is better if they have that diversity. And so, as there may be laws that are sort of rolling back, I think there's already a body of case study to prove that even if you have to take your own initiative, that it's worth doing. It isn't a nice to have, it's a must do. There's enough data out there to support that businesses thrive when you have that representation, when you have the right people at the table that can speak for various groups and bring that thought process into the boardroom or on the front line to represent the work that has to be done, it's always always better. And so it saddens me that the laws are rolling back, but I also feel like there's enough data out there and there's enough learned experience from companies where they'll continue to keep things moving forward.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Because I think the universities, for example, that have ended it, I think there's going to be not hell to pay, but I do think they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose out because I think a lot of students don't want to be in those communities. That's
Well,
it.
and to that point, Ken, there are also universities that are finding ways around it. There's some clever ways to sort of honor the Supreme Court ruling, but also to the point of understanding that their universities are better with diversity. They're finding clever ways to be a beacon of being a space and a place for all.
isn't that great? And isn't that what a university should be? You know, let's put you on the spot just a bit, but what are you going to commit to do to be a more effective leader in 2024? We have had around half a year left, give or take.
Well, one of the things that I have been doing, and partly because of some recent interactions I've had with you, is really having some intentionality around mentoring. I think that you get to a certain point in your career where you have a team, you have support, you have resources, but it also affords you time. And what do you do with that time as a senior leader? Sure, you could ask for more work, but there are also things that you can do. And I do that as well.
There's always
But there are
work.
also
There's always work, right?
there's always work, but there's also sort of being in a leadership position where you have some control of your how you manage your time. And one of the things that I've really found some great joy in is mentoring. I had the great opportunity to be a keynote speaker at a university recently and was able to sit with hundreds of students and talk about my career, my journey, about being a woman of color and the roles that I've had and really taking a great interest in sort of their curiosity about how I got to where I am. But there's something about paying it forward that I just feel karmically, and I've been the beneficiary of people taking the time to hear me out and to help with my path, whatever it is, personal or professional. And so I really am committed as a leader to finding ways to be a mentor. I mean, I've surprised people because, someone will send me a little note on LinkedIn and they'll ask for help. And I'll say, why don't you come and see me in the office? And it just blows their mind. But I'm in the position where I can manage my time to get the work done, but I can also manage my time to give back. And so we should, as leaders, carve out that space to be mentors because somebody at some point was there for us.
Yeah, it's funny. It's almost like not quite the correct use of the word noblesse oblige. Once you get to a point in your career in this field or other fields, and you've worked hard, you've been smart, you've been strategic, you've worked on your leadership, and you've earned some time. But I think there is somewhat of an obligation to give back either to the next generation or the up and coming generations, those in college, those just getting out of college. And I think beyond the obligation, it's very fulfilling. I've had a number of mentors through PRSA New Jersey and PRSA New York. And oh boy, it is one of the most wonderful feelings
It
to
is.
sense that you've helped someone make a decision. You didn't make the decision for them, but you helped them with some strategic thinking or decision making, or you've given them some objectivity, or you've helped them believe in themselves again. If they've
Absolutely.
had a job loss or something else. So for anyone watching, if you haven't mentored yet, please consider doing so. And it's never too early, right? You could be in your first or second year of your career and you could be mentoring the graduating class, maybe some PRSSA students in your university or the local college. So it's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
And Ken, to that point, while it's a joy, I learned so much from those people
Mm,
that I'm the mentor, but I'm learning from the mentee. And
always.
so that's also a nice trade-off. And I encourage it as a leader, find the time. And it doesn't take a lot to just have someone come and visit you or just have a LinkedIn conversation with someone. Um, who knows? These kids are so smart. We may have to work for them one day.
That's right. Any excuse to mention Broadway, as the great lyricist Oscar Hammerstein II said, by your pupils you'll be taught. So, okay, I've long stated that courage is an absolutely critical, fundamental leadership must have. And you recently did something that took, I think, an amazing amount of courage. Please share.
Courage or stupidity. I don't know.
To think how they go together.
Sometimes they do. Yes, Ken, I had the opportunity to do my first stand-up comedy debut not too long ago. My husband has often said that I'm very funny, and so he put his money where my mouth is, and he said, take some comedy lessons, and sort of the culminating moment of 6 or so weeks of lessons was to go to an actual comedy club and perform. And one thing that I learned about comedy is that it is not improv. Comedy is prepared. Comedy is written. Comedy
Interesting.
is rehearsed. And I always love comedians, but now understanding the process and going through it myself, it was a lot of fun. I have to say, I'm kind of proud of myself for doing it.
Good for you. And as many of you know, a previous Taking the Lead guest, Steve Cody and Clayton Fletcher, are all about the importance of comedy to help us be better presenters and better agency people and better corporate communications people. There's a lot we learn. This has brought me such joy. Thank you so much, Trenesa. If people want to find you, is LinkedIn the best place?
Absolutely. Go to Trenesa on LinkedIn. I don't think there are that many Trenesas out there. If you know how to
That's true.
spell my name,
Do
you'll
you do
find
you still
me.
on LinkedIn, do you use Stanford-Danuser or
I
Danuser?
am
Just so
still
we know.
Stanford-Danuser, but if you put
Okay,
Trenesa in, at least three of us will pop up in the whole network. So
but you're the only Stanford-Danuser.
I am.
Okay, well, Pranisa, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your joy, your positive energy, which is just popping off the screen.
Popping
And
off.
you know how to get in touch with Trenesa if you want to reach me. You know this by now. Spell it with me, Ken at JACOBSCOMM.com, KEN at JACOBSCOMM.com. And as we always say, till next time, keep on taking the lead.